Hello, my name is Asim Zaman. I'm a student of School of Politics and International Relations, Quaid-i-Azam University. I welcome you all to our third model talk show, Deconstructing Feminist Narratives, conducted by SPIR Speaking Fraternity. SPIR Speaking Fraternity is an academic society that was established a year ago by the students of School of Politics and International Relations with special collaboration of SPIR Student Society. It's a platform that provides students with an opportunity to improve their communication, presentation, and analytical skills by participating in different activities like debates, discussions, speeches, and model talk shows, etc. So far, SPIR Speaking Fraternity has successfully conducted 14 two-hourly sessions. Although the normal venue for our model talk show is the auditorium of School of Politics and International Relations, but due to the current COVID-19 crisis, we are compelled to bring it online for the first time. In this model talk show, we will have a conversation with a bunch of panelists on the given topic. The purpose of this model talk show is to have a very well-researched and academic discussion on a certain social and political issue. The panelists are encouraged to be objective and critical in their analysis, and today's bunch of panelists is very well competent and highly qualified for this task. Before moving down to our panelists, let me give you a glimpse of the background of today's discussion. Dear audience, among the different opportunistic infections that the coronavirus is smoothing the way for, domestic violence is the most problematic one. And it's so because sooner or later we may find ways to deal with the pandemic of coronavirus, but to deal with the pandemic of domestic violence, it's our quest for ages. If we look at the empirical data, The Guardian reports a surge in the number of domestic violence cases from Brazil to Germany and China to Greece during the lockdown. India and Pakistan are no exception to this unfortunate trend. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for measures against the horrifying global surge in the number of domestic violence cases. He stated in, I quote, "I urge all governments to put women's safety first as they respond to the pandemic." In the initial months of this pandemic, just after a couple of months when the first 2 cases of coronavirus were confirmed in Pakistan, we saw annual Aurat March held across different cities of Pakistan. The demonstrators of the Aurat March demanded accountability against domestic violence and sexual harassment of women at workplaces, at homes, and at public places. But on the very same day, on the other hand, we also saw a counter demonstration that was mostly from the religious section of the society, and they claimed the demonstrators of the Aurat March were spreading immodesty and going against our cultural and religious values. So on the one hand, we heard the chantings of Mera Jisam Meri Mercy, and on the other hand, we heard the chantings of Mera Jisam Khuda Ki Mercy. So how to make a sense of all this? Well, to begin with, feminism is a political ideology has always generated immense polemical debate. This controversy over the nature of feminism can be contributed into 2 factors. First off, several diverse meanings are attached with the term feminism. For example, liberal feminists associated with freedom and free choice, social feminists associated with economic equality, while on the other hand, radical feminist emphasis on radical reordering of society, that is to eliminate male supremacy in all its social and political contexts. So with so many competing narratives, the controversy over the nature of feminism is inevitable. The second factor that leads to this controversy is the complex and esoteric disposition of the ideology of feminism. There is a general lack of understanding and a prevalence of misconceptions when it comes to feminism. Most are confused whether feminism is something about male versus female, or is it solely about gender equality, or what about its orientations? Is it a political ideology or a religious ideology? So today on the show, we'll try to answer all these deep questions and dig more about feminism by deconstructing the different feminist narratives that are prevalent in the country. Now let's introduce our guest for the show. Our first guest for the show is Siaf Khan. Siaf Khan is a student of IR 6th semester, and his area of interest is feminism as a political ideology and its diverse nature. Second guest is Asma Siddiqui. She belongs to IR 8th semester, and her area of inquiry is the different waves of feminism in Pakistan. Third guest is Bariha Zaidi. She's also a student of IR 8th semester, and her area of interest is the different anti-feminist narratives in Pakistan. final guest is Asawir Tawheed. She belongs to IR 6th semester, and her area of inquiry is the depiction of women in literature. So with this, I welcome all our four panelists to the show. Siaf Khan, let's start with very basics. Could you explain for our audience what feminism is and what are the core tenets of this ideology?
Okay, Azam. According to Bell Hooks, who is a prominent African American feminist, feminism is about ending sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression of women. There are many different definitions for this ideology, but all of the different definitions has the core prime focus on the same issue, that is of gender equality. Regarding the tenets, I have found that all of the different strands of feminism insist on some of these common demands. Number one, ending of suppression, oppression, and domination of women by the men. Number two, having equal pay for equal work and protection against sexual harassment at workplace. Number three, having the same bodily freedom as do their male counterparts have. Number four, eradicating sexism from social, political, and economic spheres.
Asma, having understood the primary concept, now let's trace the evolution of this ideology. So I'm interested to know whether feminism was active in the subcontinent before the creation of Pakistan.
But often there weren't any exclusive feminist movements in the subcontinent. However, we do find certain examples of women activism that include the Aligarh educational reform movement, in which women along with men demanded their right to modern scientific education. Secondly, in the pan-Islamic Khilafat movement, where women pressurized the British to preserve the Islamic Caliphate. And lastly, in the Pakistan movement, where women were encouraged in large numbers to participate in order to attain national liberation for the Muslims of the subcontinent. These movements, for the first time, enabled women to participate in public life. However, this was not done in the interest of women's rights, but rather to add numbers to their movements. Nonetheless, we can consider this sort of women activism to be the beginning of a proper feminist movement that we see in Pakistan today.
So, what are some of the ups and downs that feminists have faced during the 70 years history of this country?
The feminist movement has been through a lot, Asim. The most pressing time was during Zia's Islamization, which institutionalized discrimination against women, and a number of discriminatory laws were also introduced, such as Hadood Ordinance, Qisas, Tayyib, Law of Evidence, and not to forget the very infamous Zina Ordinance, which equated rape with adultery. However, women organizations such as Women Action Forum and Sindiani Tehreek, they served as the face of feminist resistance during Zia's dictatorship. This situation improved considerably under the following democratic regimes of People's Party and PMLN, and the number of NGOs working for women empowerment increased massively during 1990s. Various government initiatives taken under the regime of Pervez Musharraf helped consolidate gender equality goals, such as Women Political Participation Project and the Gender Reform Action Plan. Very importantly, the Women Protection Act of 2006, which enabled rape to be investigated according to international standards. These were counted as the major gains for feminist movement.
Bariha, having understood what feminism is, and we have also traced the evolution of this ideology, now let's come towards the present. Being someone who has studied and analyzed anti-feminist groups in Pakistan, I'm interested to know what are some of the biggest hurdles still faced by women rights activists in Pakistan.
So we see that in Pakistan, being a woman is very difficult, and especially if one chooses to follow some unusual path, for example, becomes a woman rights activist. It could be really direful for her. In Pakistan, a woman rights activist is usually perceived as a westernized woman or is regarded as a threat to the societal values by the religious or the conservative elites. The reason behind such thought process is the patriarchal mindset that has dominated our society for so long. So to put it into simple words, we can say that the biggest hurdle the Pakistani women activists are facing is strong opposition from the religious and the conservative rights who have always exercised great influence in our country. Nonetheless, we see the feminists in Pakistan like Mukhtar Mai among many others have continued to speak up for the gender equality till date.
Asawir, continuing with the discussion of feminism in present-day Pakistan, how women are portrayed in our local literature and TV dramas, and does it in any way help the cause of feminism in this country?
If you observe, women are portrayed differently across our local TV shows. While there are TV shows that help bring to light the social issues that women confront on the daily basis in the country, there also are TV shows that reinforce the prevailing patriarchal mindset of the country. For instance, the TV show Ruswai shows that women can act as independently as men in the public sphere of life. It follows the protagonist Samira, who goes against her entire family to find and punish a group of men who happen to have sexually abused her. On the other hand, however, there are TV shows that portray women in traditional roles, implying that those characters have no agency of their own. For instance, the TV show Cheekh follows Mannat, the protagonist, who is a woman seeking justice for her murdered friend. However, her word holds no worth until she has her husband's support. So to put it simply, the portrayal of women in Pakistani media is an odd mix of both progression and regression.
What impact does such portrayal of women incur on our social fabric?
The portrayal of women in traditional roles reinforces the conservative values already prevalent in our society. For example, showing women happily leading domestic lives support the idea of Char Diwari being the space that is meant for them. Such portrayals, however, provide those with orthodox mindsets a gateway of sorts, justifying the status quo. On the other hand, the portrayal of women in innovative social roles show that women can work in diverse spheres of life. It opens up the society's eyes to the prospects of change and progression. TV shows that bring to light the social issues that women face, that women confront on the daily basis in the society, in the country, act as awareness campaigns for the societal fabric in general. Needless to say, a positive portrayal generates a positive impact on the societal fabric, and vice versa.
Amir has very concisely explained the role of the prevalent discourses in shaping our attitude towards feminism. Now coming towards you, Saif, could you explain what are the different types of feminism and feminist narratives generally in the world and particularly in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, the concept of feminism is eclectic and heterogeneous in nature. We have different forms and strengths of feminisms in Pakistan, some of which may include the liberal feminists who emphasize on the public spheres of life for the political and legal rights and equality for women. They may not necessarily have a problem with endemic patriarchy in our society. Then come Marxist feminists, whose area of concern is private property, family, and the state. They demand for the change in the system and modes of production of economy and incorporating more and more women into the formal economy. Then comes the radical feminists, whose emphasis and focus lie on both the public and the private realms of life. They say that the personal is the political. So they demand voluntary control over their bodies, for example, having the choice to marry, the choice to have reproduction, the choice to have a family, and sexual rights, etc. They demand for the complete abolition of patriarchy from society. Lastly, we have the secular feminists who are concerned more with the exclusion of religion from the policy framework and making of the state.
Now that we are identifying and distinguishing between different feminist narratives, Asma, I would also like you to make a classification for us how the current or the contemporary feminist movements are different from the previous feminist movements.
Well, the contemporary feminist movement is quite different from the previous ones. While the previous movements adopted a silent strategy and refrained from touching controversial topics relating sexuality, while also limiting their focus to subjects such as right to education and political and economic rights, the recent feminist movement is bringing paradigmatic shift in the feminist thinking in Pakistan. They're bold enough to talk about topics relating sexuality, sexual preferences, bodily rights, reproductive rights, questioning gender roles, while also advocating for the rights of sexual minorities. So in this way, we can say that the recent feminist movement is much more radical and at the same time much more pluralistic as compared to the previous women movements.
Speaking of the contemporary feminist movements, during the Aurat March, we saw a widespread polarization in the socio-political atmosphere of this country. We saw people taking different sides, and it was almost impossible to tell how many sides there were. But so far, we can say that there were two sides, feminists and anti-feminist. Bariha, you have studied the latter group and you have analyzed them. So tell us who anti-feminists are and what are their key arguments against this movement.
Okay. So we can define anti-feminists as those who oppose some or all forms of feminism. Generally, feminism is perceived as an ideology that is hostile toward men by the anti-feminists. If we particularly talk about Pakistan, we see that in Pakistan, feminism is widely opposed in the name of religion by certain anti-feminist groups who hail from JUIF, Jamaat Islami, Lal Masjid and many other religious seminaries, because they perceive the whole concept of feminism as an un-Islamic and a challenge to the Eastern values. And that's why in February this year, we witnessed Aurat March that was conducted by the women who opposed the feminism supported by the Aurat March participants. And the main controversy was over the slogan of Mera Jissa Mere Marzi, which according to the Aurat March participants or the religious anti-feminists was an indecent, immoral and an unreligious slogan. So we can say in short that anti-feminists in Pakistan always use the religious argument against feminism.
Asabir, I would like to come towards you. As a result of the contemporary feminist movements, has there been any change, positive or negative, in the portrayal of women in dramas, literature, and other similar discourses?
Local dramas, literature, and other similar discourses are usually reflections of the prevailing social and political narratives of a society. And as students of social sciences, we are aware of the fact that change in any society's predominant social narratives and political narratives is an evolutionary process. For instance, during Zia's Islamization period, dupattas and headscarves were made compulsory for women on TV, to the point that women in PTV's drama serials were shown in beauty salons getting their hair cut while wearing headscarves. That has changed for the most part, but the remnants of Zia's Islamization period's ideas are still apparent in our social discourses. For instance, TV shows revolving around the dupatta being the symbol of honor reflect those ideas. Contemporary feminist movements aim to change those very ideas. They want to change the good women, bad women dilemma, and to some extent, they have been successful. But again, change in any society is a slow process.
Asabir has very concisely explained the role and connection of literature with feminism. Now let's talk about the role of religion. What do you think is the role of religion when we talk about feminism, particularly Islam? Is it compatible and concurrent with the ideology of feminism, or is it contradictory and confrontational? What do you think?
Hassan, you see, ever since the creation of this nation on the basis of Islamic ideology, Islam has enjoyed a central space in the economic, political and social lives. We have example of the name of the nation, Islamic Republic of Pakistan, according to the Constitution of 1973. The tussle is mainly between the feminist voices and the Islamists, not Islam, because Islam provides for the female and women rights. The Islamists lead and preach the literal and punitive versions of Islam, which are quite at odds with the feminist voices for either complete exclusion or the moderate interpretation of Islam to better suit the women's rights given by Islam as well. So we saw that in 1961 a Muslim Families Law Ordinance was passed by General Ayub, and then in 2006 Women Protection Act was passed by General Musharraf. Both secular and liberal leaders aimed at protecting women's rights as afforded by Islam. So the notion that Islam and feminism are quite contradictory to each other is not quite true. And we saw it recently that the strike between Aurat March and Aurat March on 8 March 2020. So it's not Islam and feminism, but the Islamists which are impeding the course of feminism.
So far, we have studied the different factors that have impacted feminism in the country. Now let's see it the other way around. How feminism has in itself impacted the country. Asma, coming towards you, tell us how successful these different feminist movements are in gender mainstreaming for economic development, and how successful feminism is in the realization of equal rights for women in the country.
Well, let me share a report that came out just recently. It's called the Global Gender Gap Index Report, and it was published by the World Economic Forum. It placed Pakistan 151 out of 153 countries, and Pakistan only managed to surpass Iraq and Yemen. In another report by the name Gender Parity Front, Pakistan was ranked as the second worst performing country, 148 out of 149. So these figures and these statistics suggest and represent rather disappointing status of gender parity in Pakistan, where women are not only denied equal opportunities, but they're also reduced to managerial positions. Despite continuous and relentless efforts towards women empowerment, Pakistan has failed miserably in gender mainstreaming for economic development. However, feminist movement has contributed tremendously in active lobbying for women-friendly bills. For example, Protection for Women Act and Status of Women Bill, and many other regulations basically condemning women for gender-based violence. Yes.
Riha, Pakistan still has a long way to go to ensure equal rights for women. Anti-feminist narratives still exist in the country. Perception plays a very important role in our actions. So I am interested in knowing that what are the perceptions in the minds of anti-feminists when they present their argument.
We see that with rise in feminism, there is also an increase in anti-feminist rhetoric. And according to my study and inquiry, the anti-feminist argument in Pakistan is usually based upon following perception. Firstly, there are people who believe that nature itself has created the difference between men and women, and it is best to accept it and move on. And secondly, there are people who believe that feminism is an ideology that only advocates women's supremacy and disregard men's rights. And thirdly, there are majority of people who believe that feminism is a predominant threat to our traditional, cultural and religious values. Moreover, yet interestingly, there are many people who believe that feminism has served its purpose and there are no more issues today faced by the woman that needs to be addressed. And lastly, feminism is regarded as a Yehudi Sadish or Jewish conspiracy in our society because many people believe that feminism in Pakistan is a conspiracy by the Jewish who just wanted to create disorder and unrest in our traditional society.
All right, we are about to conclude our model talk show, but one final question, and that is an opinion-oriented question from Asawir. Asawir, in your opinion, is there something you would wish to change about the way women are portrayed in our literature and drama?
Well, there's a number of things I wish would change. First, it is imperative that the element of objectifying women be eliminated from our TV industry as well as other similar discourses. Second, the good Muslim woman trope needs to be cut down. Third, omitting misinterpreted versions of religion from literature is crucial to prevent certain scholars from manipulating the masses. Fourth, the mainstream media should create space for unconventional writers like Ismat Chughtai and Rashid Jahan who railed against social inequity and those who exploit women. Fifth, female representation as independent beings of their own with distinct individualities ought to increase in the visual arts field. For instance, pieces like Judy Chicago's The Dinner Party, featuring a triangular table meant to host key female figures throughout the history, in such a way that none of them heads the table. This alludes to the fact that they are all equal in their own capacity. Additionally, pieces like Marie Cassette's reading Le Figaro, a woman reading a newspaper, ought to be part of the mainstream as well. I think portrayals of this nature help the society break the assigned gender roles.
Bariha, do you see any prospects that the gap between feminist and anti-feminist might be reduced somewhere in near future?
So the gap cannot be eliminated completely, but we can expect in the future that the society will be more acceptable toward the whole phenomenon of feminism, and this could be only made possible if we try to educate people through proper channels and create an understanding that this Aurat March is not just a march with the poster, but it has a proper charter of demands, and this could be only made possible with the help of the government that would help by fulfilling the demands by implementing Domestic Violence Prevention and Protection Act of 2013, Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2018, and decriminalization of defamation, and repeal section 499 and 500 of the Pakistan Penal Code.
Khan, talking about the future prospects, what sort of future do you see for this movement?
I think, Qasim, this is the most relevant and serious question for Pakistan today. You see, there is a kind of deadlock between the fundamentalist religious voices and the secular feminist voices. I think feminists will not be able to achieve their demand unless the two complementary tools of women control, that is, religion and customary masculinist code, as suggested by Afia Zia in her book Faith and Feminism in Pakistan, are seized as the traditional sources of deriving patriarchal political authority. And in order to achieve that, the notion that feminism is a Western project and that has a pre-planned agenda of disturbing our social fabric and morals, it has to be shunned. How it is to be done? It has to preach the concept of secularism as what it is. It is basically the separation of states from derivation of policy framework in the realm of religion. Separation of two is the basic focus of secular identity. Rubina Segal, a prominent feminist, argues that the two new dimensions of extremism and militant Islamism are also to be dealt in order for feminism to be successful.
One final question, and for that I'll come towards Asma. Asma, do you think that this movement will somehow be able to make inroads in a conservative society like ours?
You're absolutely right, Asim. Pakistan is a highly conservative society, and pursuing feminism here is a challenging task, no doubt about this. However, I believe that sustainable change always comes through evolution, and that as researchers, we must not ignore any sociological element that makes up the life of an individual living in Pakistan. For instance, the context of Islam cannot be ignored. So, speaking from a postmodernist perspective, I think any sustainable change has to be grounded within the local context. And as feminism has secular Western roots, therefore it is to predict that it cannot be replicated as it is in Pakistan. Perhaps the only way forward lies in developing a model of women empowerment that effectively reconciles Islam with modern human rights discourse. And one of the many ways could be through engaging in a process of unreading and revisiting patriarchal interpretations of the Quran, as suggested by Asma Barlas.
With this ends our show for today. If you've got any query or if you want to share any information, you can access us at our email, SPIR Speaking Fraternity @gmail.com. Till our next show, I wish all of you a healthy and good stay at your homes. Thank you.